All right, Natalie, thanks so much for doing this. My first question that I have for you is, tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how you started in the journalism industry.
Yeah, so let's see. Well, I was really into reading and writing a lot. Pretty much like since I can remember. And so I grew up in a really small, kind of small county, Hudson County, like northern New Jersey, where pretty much everybody knew each other. Like the towns were super close together. And so and growing up with my family, I'm first generation. My parents are immigrants, and so we would watch the news a lot in Spanish, pretty much since I was like little, and all I got was Spanish news. And it wasn't until I guess high school where I was like, okay, well, I don't, there's a huge difference in the Spanish news and the English news. And you see, I started, reading more like articles and all that stuff. And I started noticing the gap between the Spanish and the English news. And so that kind of got me into journalism. And I love like history and I love writing stuff, just random stuff. And so that's pretty much how I got into journalism and my passion and love for everything. Like I just love everything. And I love like kind of talking to people, getting to know what they do. And so with that and like journalism, I feel like it kind of got together, if that makes sense. And so I ended up going to Temple University in Philly, which was a huge like a huge like mind opener. Like it was completely different from where I was born and raised here. And so my passion there grew like immensely. And so I got to room with three other girls, and there were like I was the only Hispanic one. Like I was, my parents are Colombian and Ecuadorian, and so my roommates were like American, like blue eyes, blonde hair, and so that was such a drastic change. And I'm like, okay, well, I want to find the possibility to somewhat combine that, like Hispanics, making sure they're represented in the media, and it doesn't necessarily have to be in the news, just making sure that the presence are there, and even in like comedy and like TV shows, just to make sure that, minorities are represented in the media. And in my case, journalism is a huge thing, and that's what I'm doing. Making sure that minorities, not just Hispanics, but disability, aging people, any types of minority groups are represented. And so that's what I, try to do. I try to get those people and listen to their stories and making sure that everybody kind of understands where they're coming from and what their story is.
hmm And so who was that sort of mentor, that sort of role model that you looked up to say, hey, I want to get into this field, profession?
Well, see, honestly, I didn't really have a role model. I wasn't really aspiring to be someone. I just knew that I wanted to be the person who w would be able to like tell the news like that my parents would understand, and also like people like Americans would also understand, I mean, I'm a US citizen, so like I was born here, but my parents weren't, and my parents speak Spanish. So even now there's a lot of times where I would have to like all my articles that are published, I would have to go to Google and translate everything, or I would just have to tell them what the article is about. And so I just want to like bridge that together, but there wasn't anybody like specific where I was like, I want to be that person. Um, but now with like social media and everything, there's a lot of really cool people, and a lot of people are doing, the same thing as me. And over like a year ago, I ended up meeting she's like my mentor, Vanessa Marie, and she's a journalist who has helped me immensely, and she's the one who got me into everything. And honestly, I wouldn't have been here if like I didn't have that conversation with her, and she didn't like put me in touch with a lot of these organizations that I work with.
And so you said a minute ago that there was a gap between the English news coverage and the Spanish news coverage. So what kind of gap are you talking about?
So let's see. I like, for example, And like in one type of like Spanish news, they would only report on like one side or like only focus on one specific like major event. Whereas I mean, to be fair, the English news sometimes lacks that as well, where they don't focus on minorities a lot. But then I notice it's kind of like going back and forth where it's like Spanish news only reports on like Hispanics, but they don't report on everything else, right? Other minorities. They only focus on themselves, which is okay, and I it's great. But you also like in order for you to understand and get to know what's happening in the world and I try to be a good journalist where I get to report everything and not just stick to one side. Yes, my goal is to raise awareness and show a lot of Hispanics and representation in the media, but my goal is to do that full round, if that makes sense. Like every minority, everybody's voice is like okay, if that makes sense, and like everybody's voice is heard and their stories are heard, right? And so with the English, they only report pretty much the same thing on themselves, which is fine to an extent, but not enough and not okay when somebody like my parents who weren't born in the US are trying to get to know what's going on in the world or just in the US where they're like, okay, like what's going like wait, why am I not like this doesn't have to do with me, if that makes sense. It's just a lot of
Mm-hmm.
like little back and forth things. I'm like, okay, well, like, this is not good, but also this is not good. And so I tend like now, with journalism and me, writing and talking a lot about politics and government and all that stuff, I try to send my parents like articles. I think the articles and just honestly journalist writing on online sometimes is better because you get the full story, whereas the new like on TV, it's so I feel like it's just either one-sided or just I don't know. I personally love reading about the news. Like I read the news every day. I'm not really watching TV, but I try to change that and help like my parents out and like I send them links. Although, to be fair, there's a lot of like fake news out there too that my parents kind of fall in that whole trap with the AI. Um, but no, I'm trying to just change little by little and just trying to make a difference.
Mm-hmm. You also make this great point of like, oftentimes with like national news, often it's composed of like media conglomerates, and what they're focused on is like a narrative for something, where it's opposed to like, many news, many journalists from cable news, they transition to independent media because that's more common. So
Right.
do you see that a lot? Or is it starting to grow, this sort of transition from like mass media conglomerates to like more independent local media?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I was just having this conversation with my cousin where she's like, honestly, I hate the news. And she's like, I don't know where to go. And I'm like, honestly, sometimes you just have to rely on your local news and local journalists and independent journalism because that's where the news is at. Like that's where like you get what's happening, real life, real, right? And so I believe in that and that's what I want. But the sad part of it is that it just sometimes a lot of these journalists, like it does not pay enough. And so I'm like in terms of myself, I right now I'm an independent and so I work with all the like I'm a freelancer, so I work with different organizations and they work with me and I intern, I do fellowships, all that stuff kind of independently and that's what they're all about and nonprofits and all that stuff. And that's what I want to do, but I have like tons of student loans. I have so many things and just it's just kind of a battle of like, okay, like do I want to make a difference in this way or do I just want to pay my bills and just kind of get by? And so that's like a conversation that I've had mentally because it's like it doesn't pay enough, right? But then I want to make a difference and like journalism is my passion and what I believe in and what I write about is so important that I know for sure like this is what I want to do for the rest of my life and like I want to do that, right? But then it's just like that struggle financially. It's like, I don't know where to go.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just hard. It's hard and I've spoken with a lot of people on it and they're the same way. I've had friends who have a passion in journalism and I've worked with them and now they're like, I can't find a job in journalism. I can't. I'm just going and doing something else, like completely different from journalism. And so they lose that. But I do not want to lose journalism. Like that has to be part of me, like moving forward, I guess, for the rest of my
Yeah.
life. Yeah.
Yeah, it's often a struggle for many folks in my industry, like because they're focusing on other careers as well, because they're like, how am I gonna make money? I'm not sure if this is long term, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I
So
mean, I'm getting a Pilates certification. That is so random. Like that is like I'm just trying to build up like paying up these loans.
hmm And so my next question is, like, what do you hope to do in terms of like your journalism career? Do you still plan on writing journalism? Do you plan to like do a lot of talks, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to get as much experience as I could get, and I'm just trying to write and keep writing. And even if I don't end up writing for like a full time or like, stable thing. Um, I would still want to do it independently. I write sometimes for Substack. Like I still want to put on content and anything that I can get out and do myself, that I'm there. I do want to also expand a lot more on like sports and like kind of video form. I did a lot in college for videos and audio, but I kind of stopped that just because once school is over, like I don't have access to those like Adobe Creative Cloud. So it's just like transitioning back to using like free, like cheaper versions. Because I'm so used to like Adobe. So yeah, but I definitely want to like continue on and also like open up a lot of my horizons and just talk to different types of people too.
hmm What can be done to like make the journalism industry more equitable? Because you said oftentimes journalists don't get paid enough money, that kind of thing. There's some financial struggles, so I'm wondering what things could be done to really improve the journalism industry and make journalists, feel, I guess, seen for their work, represented for their work.
Honestly, I just think people supporting local news, local journalists, independent journalists, I think by the audience, helping out, I like, interacting even like on social media, like following them, interact, commenting, even like donating stuff like that, I think helps a lot. I know that I work for a Slice of Culture. I'm a community like intern, community storytelling intern. And so a lot of their funds they get by like the New Jersey like Civic Forum. And so that's been a whole struggle because of all these like, legislations and all these like things that's going around, like they might lose a lot of their funds through that. And with the news and everything, like the government, there's just been a lot of cutbacks on local news. And so, going out, advocating, talking to your um, these policymakers, I think is really important. And just making sure that people know what's going on. And it's affecting everybody. Local news is fundamental and it's needed anywhere. It's needed small towns, big towns. Like that's where journalism is at. And that's where people I think should realize that and journalism is so important and it just that's every day like every day people like TikTok, there's journalists on TikTok, there's journalists on Substack, there's journalists everywhere. And although I will say not everybody's a journalist, for the majority, that's where it's at. And local news is so important and helping out and interacting socially or even like donating $1, I think helps a lot on these like small organizations and just being nice to one another too. Because if there's been times where I'm like, hey, I'm here working for local news, they're like, oh, so and like they're like rude, like because you're not like big, if that makes sense. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Like, yeah, I'm here independently. Oh, well, I don't know if I have time, or like they ghost me, or like I plan this whole thing, they don't show up for the meeting because I'm not like big enough per se. Like things like that. It's like, why? Be
y-
nice.
Yeah. I remember one time I had a poli sci class and we were going through introductions and then so we had to introduce ourselves. Hi, my name is so and so. My career is so and so.
Right.
And then so they get to me and I said I'm Laszlo and I'm a journalism major. Blah blah blah. And the professor said, she said it was very funny. She said you're a dying breed.
Yeah, I know. I get that all the time. Or I get, oh, you guys like are annoying, or you guys are like I get some sort of like, oh my gosh, I love that. That's so cool. Or I get like, oh, well, everything's fake, right? Well, okay, like okay. Like what? So yeah, no, I'm with you on that. I get the same way. And people don't understand what we do, and I think it's important to show how important we are. We actually are.
Yeah. So, like in terms of like the way we consume news, it's so different because before you used to watch TV, read newspapers. Now it's just through podcasts because I feel like podcasts are easily digestible information because people they're going through their day, they have stuff to do, but podcasts are easily digestible. So I'm wondering from your perspective, how has the media consumption changed throughout the years?
Oh, by a lot. I mean, let's see. Well, that's a hard question. I don't know. I mean, it's always been for a while. I know, like kind of what I said before, where it was, hold on, am I freezing up? Okay. Did I freeze up for a little?
Yeah, you freezed up a little bit. You were
Okay.
saying?
Sorry. I know that when I was growing up, local well, to be fair, I was really small, so I don't really know, but I remember just watching TV a lot, not so much reading, like what I experienced like in my house, like we just would watch just TV. And then getting older and my passion for reading grew. I think I started noticing a lot of people actually like reading the physical newspaper. But now, like looking back at it and like all that experience that I've gained, I think like physical things are dying. I think, but I love it. Like I have a physical everything. Like I have physical calendar, physical, like everything's physical for me. I can't do like online. And so I think it's definitely changed where people are just doing everything online. And I mean, even our conversation right now, like I'm Eastern time. You're like, what?
I'm in Seattle. So go
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in like northern New Jersey and you're like in Seattle, like things like that. But it's a good thing, but also a bad thing. A good thing where we make connections like we're having right now. Like this is awesome, by the way. Thanks for like emailing. This is great. But it just also limits a lot of like things because, a lot of people is just online, like bookstores, although it has risen a lot because of like TikTok. But social media is also a great aspect, and social media has changed a lot, and it's just become a huge thing. Like that's what people do now. Like they get their news on TikTok now. That's
Yeah,
another thing too.
TikTok is really a big thing. So I guess my last question is, you said something about like educating the public on the news and getting them more informed because I feel like with so much polarization and things, people are becoming, more polarized or people are not informed as much. So how do we inform the folks about the things that are going on, right now and make sense of it, perspective on it?
I think talking to people, I think like showing up for like online and social media and your accounts. And so I think right now at this point, everybody has a social media account, whether they want to or not. At some point, I think they like ultimately would have to. And I think reposting things, I think, or just talking to your friends because word of mouth, honestly, I know it's like old style, but like that's how people like things get around. Like that's how we kind of make a difference. And just showing up for anything, just going up, showing up, because when you show up to things, even if like it's kind of lame, right? You get to talk to people, get to talk to what's going on around your area. And I think you get to learn and you get to be like, wait, like this kind of impacts me. Wait, like I have a friend who does like blah, 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 right? I have somebody who I know and I want to make a difference. And so I think that is important. And, when you really care for something, I think that's where we get to do like when you really care for something, I think that's what makes it like change it. That's what like that's how changes work. Like what happened in LA, like everybody stuck together. Like even here, there was a lot of protests here too. And so when you stick together like that, like you make a huge difference and talking to people and making sure that people know what's going on. Like even if like I know there's some people who like hate politics, hate all this. And although everything is political and I 100% agree on that. I think everything is political, everything just even like kind of like throwing little like oh like did you hear about this like little sentences or little words to like make them think. I think that helps a lot. Even like you don't have to get into that whole thing, but just like little things to like make them think, or you know what I mean, like I
Yeah,
don't know.
like, did you hear about this or did you? Yeah.
Yeah, like little things to kind of like get them to be like, okay, well, yeah, maybe I should think of this. Yeah, maybe I should vote. Like maybe I yeah, like things like that's what happened to my sister. Like I did this. I was like, "Oh, did you see this?" A couple days later, "Oh my gosh, look at that." "Oh, look." And then like when the day of the election came for like New Jersey, I was like, "Oh, we should like vote, right?" And she goes, I don't know. I'm like, I'll do everything for you. Let's just vote and like I'll get you ice cream. Like things like that. Like make it fun.
Yeah, make it fun, exactly.
Yeah.
Alrighty.